Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. I never imagined I would be telling this story to strangers, but some moments in life force you to look back and admit where things quietly went wrong. My name is James. I'm 38, work in commercial logistics, and until recently, I thought I had a stable relationship with Elizabeth. Not perfect, not dramatic, just steady in the way grown adults expect things to be when the chaos of youth settles. We'd been together 6 years, long enough to build routines, long enough to stop pretending, long enough to believe loyalty meant something without having to say it out loud. Elizabeth was always expressive, confident, the kind of woman who could walk into a room and immediately control its temperature. I was the opposite, reserved, observant. I listened more than I spoke, and she used to say that grounded her. In the early years, that balance worked. We spent weekends cooking, hosting friends, planning trips we sometimes never took. There was affection, attraction, a sense of choosing each other even on boring days. I thought that was what commitment matured into. Comfort, predictability, trust. But over the last year, something shifted, not abruptly, quietly. Conversations shortened. Physical closeness became optional. She'd sit across from me scrolling on her phone while I talked about my day, nodding without really hearing. I told myself it was stress. Her career was demanding. Social expectations weighed on her. I adjusted, like men are taught to do. I gave space. I stayed patient. I didn't push. If this story feels familiar so far, tap the like button so it reaches people who need to hear it too. The first time I noticed something was truly off was at a dinner with her friends. They joked about dating apps, about keeping options open, laughing like it was harmless banter. Elizabeth laughed too, harder than necessary. On the drive home, I asked her about it casually. She said people were allowed to talk, that I was reading too much into nothing. I accepted that explanation, even though it sat uncomfortably in my chest. Over time, those moments added up. New clothes, more nights out, a sudden protectiveness over her phone. Still no accusations, no scenes, just a growing awareness that I was no longer at the center of her world. One evening, a Tuesday that felt like every other Tuesday, she asked if we could talk. That phrase never lands lightly. She didn't sound angry. If anything, she sounded rehearsed. We sat at the kitchen table, the same place we'd planned vacations, and argued about paint colors. She folded her hands and told me she felt restless, that she loved me, but not in the way she used to. Then she said it, calmly, carefully. She wanted the freedom to date other men while staying together. She framed it as honesty, as growth, as something modern couples should be able to discuss. I didn't interrupt. I listened. She explained how she didn't want to lose me, but didn't want to feel limited either. How this wasn't about replacing me, just exploring connections. She watched my face closely, waiting for anger, jealousy, negotiation. What she didn't expect was silence. Not shock, not pleading, just me absorbing the weight of what she was asking. If you were in my position, what would your first thought be? Leave a comment and be honest. I asked one question. I wanted to know if she'd already chosen someone. She hesitated long enough to answer, without words. That pause told me everything. The relationship I thought I was protecting had already been mentally redefined without my consent. In her mind, I was stability, not desire, safety, not priority. She said she hoped I'd understand, that this could make us stronger. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I finally understood what I'd been avoiding. That night, I didn't argue. I didn't storm out. I didn't raise my voice. I slept beside someone who had already stepped away. In the dark, I realized something uncomfortable. When someone asks for permission to disrespect you, the decision has already been made. Type the word clarity in the comments if you understand that moment. I lay awake until morning, not angry, just alert in a way I hadn't been for months. By sunrise, I knew whatever came next would change everything, for both of us. By the next evening, Elizabeth acted almost relieved, like saying it out loud had lightened her. She moved around the apartment humming, making plans for dinner, asking what movie I wanted to watch. It struck me how quickly people adjust when they believe the hardest part is over. She assumed the conversation had ended, that I would need time but eventually comply. I realized she wasn't waiting for my answer. She was waiting for my acceptance. I didn't give it to her. The following Saturday, she got dressed early. New outfit, subtle makeup. Not excessive, just intentional. She said she was meeting friends. I nodded and asked what time she'd be back. She shrugged casual. Not sure. Don't wait up. The words landed heavier than she intended. For the first time, the future she described looked exactly like what it was. Me waiting. Her choosing. I watched the door close and felt something settle inside me. Not anger. Finality. I spent the afternoon going through things I hadn't touched in years. Old photos. Shared receipts. Messages from when we still sounded like a team. I wasn't searching for proof. I was measuring distance. Somewhere between memory and reality. I accepted that staying would slowly teach me to hate myself. That night, I made my decision quietly, the way grown men often do when they've exhausted every internal argument. When she came home past midnight, she looked surprised to see me awake, almost annoyed. She started explaining her night, then stopped when she noticed my bag by the couch. I told her I'd thought about what she said, that I respected her honesty. Then I said the part she didn't expect. I told her I wouldn't compete for my own place in a relationship, that I wasn't interested in being an option while she explored alternatives. I told her she was free to date whoever she wanted, just not while calling me her partner. She laughed at first, thought I was posturing. When she realized I wasn't, her expression shifted. Confusion, then panic. She asked where I was going. I told her I'd already arranged something temporary, and that I'd move the rest of my things later. She said I was overreacting. That adult's compromise. I told her compromise doesn't include swallowing disrespect. If this moment resonates with you, consider sharing this story with someone who might be struggling silently. She followed me to the door, voice tightening. She reminded me of our history, our years, everything we'd built. I reminded her that commitment isn't flexible when it's convenient. I walked out before the conversation turned into bargaining. The air outside felt different, cleaner, like I'd stepped back into myself after a long absence. The next few days were quiet, too quiet. Then the messages started. Regret, confusion, accusations. She said she hadn't meant it the way I took it, that she was just being honest, that I was throwing away something good over a misunderstanding. I didn't argue. I didn't explain further. I simply didn't return. Silence, I learned, is often the clearest boundary. A week later, she called asking if we could talk. She said she missed me, that she'd realized dating other men didn't feel the way she thought it would. I listened, then told her something that surprised even me. I said I believed her, and that it still didn't change my answer. Trust doesn't reset because someone panics after losing access. What would you have done differently in my place? Drop your perspective in the comments, and let's talk about it. I moved on slower than I expected, but lighter than I imagined. There was grief, yes, but there was also relief. The kind that comes when you stop negotiating your worth. Months later, I ran into her by chance. She looked smaller, not physically, emotionally. She asked if I was seeing anyone. I told her I was seeing myself clearly for the first time in a long while. Some people think strength is loud. That walking away requires anger. They're wrong. Sometimes the strongest move is calm refusal, choosing self-respect without theatrics. If you believe loyalty still matters, type respect in the comments. This experience taught me something simple but unforgiving. When someone tells you they want more freedom at the cost of your dignity, believe them and choose yourself. Always. If this story made you think, like the video, subscribe for more real-life stories, and answer this. Would you stay or walk away when respect is on the line?